Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 16 July 2018. Now, let us begin. Now, we begin with the first page of the Hindu newspaper. Now, there are two articles which focus upon fake news. Now, both of these articles have not been taken in the Daily News headlines or DNH. And this is because both of these news are very specific in nature, and the content given in both of these articles are not required to be understood with regards to civil services examination. But what is required to be understood is the concept of fake news. But what we'll do with regards to both of these articles is first understand as to what is fake news. The second aspect that we'll focus upon is the concerns with regards to fake news. And the third and the final aspect that we'll try to understand is on how to tackle fake news. Now let us first begin by understanding as to what is fake news. Now we have taken this article of tackling fake news from the upcoming August edition of the Focus magazine. Now India currently has close to 500 million internet users, wherein this makes India the second largest online population in the world after China. Now what has happened? There has been increasing instances of misleading and false online content. And this false online content is being used to incite communal riots, spread false information, and create animosity among various groups in India. Now, there is no specific definition of fake news, and fake news generally exists within the larger context of mis and disinformation, wherein misinformation is false or inaccurate information that has been mistakenly created, while disinformation is false information that is deliberately created to influence public opinion or to spread false information. Now, hopefully, you have understood as to what is simply meant by fake news. Now, let us understand the various concerns with regards to fake news. Now, the first concern with regard to fake news is of law and order, wherein fake news has wider implications for law and order and safety and security of the citizens of India. And apart from this, the spread of fake news also damages the democratic credentials of India, wherein, as you might be aware, there have been recent cases of public lynching, wherein WhatsApp was used to spread misinformation that fueled public anger, and the use of fake news to incite public lynching, mob violence, creates issues of law and order in India and also damages the democratic credentials of India. Now, the second concern with regard to fake news is of shifting responsibility. Now, as you might be aware of the recent public lynching cases, now what happened in this public lynching cases is that the media narrative highlighted the role of WhatsApp, which is a communication network, while this media narrative did not focus on the underlying factors such as of identity politics, past instances of conflict between the groups, or the underlying factors that caused public lynching. And in addition to this, the central government also issued a warning to WhatsApp, wherein the narrative by the media and the central government, rather than shifting the responsibility to communication networks such as WhatsApp for cases of public lynching, the government itself should take steps to combat the use of communication network to spread rumors and misinformation. And accountability should be fixed with the police and the public officials for maintaining law and order, rather than blaming communication networks such as WhatsApp. The third concern with fake news is of opinion engineering, wherein targeted content or tailor-made messages are being used on online platforms and messaging applications such as WhatsApp to influence the behavior of voters, where in recent cases opinions have been engineered as a form of political propaganda to incite animosity or conflict between groups, and this is generally seen before elections in India to polarize voting. Now, the fourth concern with regards to fake news is of chaos creation, wherein fake news, fake social media messages have been used to create chaos, such as fake bomb scares at airport, manipulating the stock market, among other instances where fake news has been used to create chaos. Now, the fifth concern with regards to fake news is of the usage of artificial intelligence, wherein the technology advances in machine and deep learning has made it possible for artificial intelligence to generate fake content. And this fake content that has been generated by artificial intelligence becomes hard to distinguish from real information. And there is also a flip side to this, wherein the usage of artificial intelligence to tackle fake news online is currently not up to the mark, wherein artificial intelligence is unable to understand the nuances of human writing, wherein artificial intelligence is unable to distinguish the harmful tone with which a particular comment or a message has been made online. Now, the sixth and the final concern with regards to fake news is who would regulate the fake content, wherein the regulation of fake news, such as removing it from a particular platform, requires decisions, which further raises the concern as to who would make that decision and whether that decision would interfere with the freedom of speech or expression. So, now hopefully, up till here, you've understood the six concerns that are there with fake news. Now, let us understand the various steps that can be taken to curb fake news. Now, the first method that can be used to curb fake news is the usage of artificial intelligence. Wherein previously, as you might be aware of also, that social media giants such as Google have experimented with artificial intelligence, wherein artificial intelligence has been used to curb spam emails, which you also might be aware of. Wherein artificial intelligence can now be used to run a content cross check to see whether a news story has been replicated by various newspaper databases, and this can be used to distinguish as to what is fake news and what is actual news. The second aspect is that artificial intelligence can be used to form a database which would have the specific accounts, the sources, the geographical location, and the IP addresses, which are known sources of fake news. Wherein an artificial intelligence detection mechanism can be formed that can highlight a news or a particular comment has been shared by the specific source. Apart from this, artificial intelligence can also be used for fact checking, wherein it could look through similar articles that have appeared on a particular context, wherein artificial intelligence can spot manipulated or doctored images and videos, and thereby alerting the platform or the user of the wrongful use of the images and the videos. The second main step to stopping fake news is of user vigilance, wherein alertness is required on part of the users as actual consumers and targets of the fake information, wherein human judgment and wisdom is critical to solving the spread of fake news. So, before you and I share content online, we can exercise our judgment to question the source of that information and whether it is credible or not. Third step that can be taken to curb fake news is of fact checking. Now, various fact checking websites such as Alt News have come up in India, wherein the fact checking organization Boom Live is now available on WhatsApp so as to provide factual accuracy to viral information. Now, the fourth and the final step that can be taken to curb fake news is of crowdsourcing. Now, this crowdsourcing would be similar to the concept of Wikipedia, where a network of volunteers keep the information updated. And so, human networks can be formed to combat fake news, wherein a collective effort of individuals, governments, social media, content platforms, with the additional use of artificial intelligence technology, can be used to combat the influence and the spread of fake news. So now hopefully you have understood as to what is fake news, what are the concerns with fake news, and what are the steps that can be taken to curb fake news. Now with regards to UPSC syllabus, wherein tackling fake news would be placed in GS paper 3 within the section security and within the subsection challenges to internal security through communication networks, and moreover in basics of cyber security, wherein previously the questions have been asked in UPSC mains examination, when the first question was asked in GS paper 3 in 2016, when the question had asked on how the use of internet and social media by non-state actors is a major security concern for India, suggest effective guidelines to curb the above threat. While the second question was asked in GS paper 3 of 2017, which had asked that mob violence is emerging as a serious law and order problem in India. By giving suitable example, analyze the causes and consequences of such violence. Wherein a question for a practice is fake news is emerging as a major concern for law and order in India, suggest steps required to be undertaken to curbing fake news. Wherein you can highlight the various steps that have been given in this explanation that can be used to curb fake news. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 8. Now what this article talks about is that corporate social responsibility or CSR needs to be utilized for improving higher education. Now before understanding as to what this article talks about, let us first understand as to what is corporate social responsibility or CSR. Now in simple terms, CSR or corporate social responsibility are corporate initiatives towards the environment and social welfare. Now, corporate social responsibility in India is provided under Section 135 of the Companies Act of 2013. Moreover, various provisions of corporate social responsibility are further provided in the Corporate Social Responsibility Rules of 2014. Now, as per Section 135 of the Companies Act of 2013, the CSR expenditure by companies needs to be 2% of the net profits of that company in the last 3 years. Now, this corporate social responsibility is not applied to every company, and Section 135 of the Companies Act of 2013 has various parameters on which corporate would CSR be applied to. Now, corporate social responsibility is applied on companies which have a net worth of 500 crores or more, or a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, or a net profit of rupees 5 crore or more. Now, hopefully, up till here, you've understood as to what is corporate social responsibility. Now, in simple terms, corporate social responsibility means the various corporate initiatives that are targeted towards the environment and social welfare. Now, corporate social responsibility in India is provided under Section 135 of the Companies Act of 2013. And moreover, various rules of corporate social responsibility in India is further provided under the CSR rules of 2014. Now, under the Companies Act of 2013, the CSR expenditure of a company or a corporate needs to be of 2% of its net profit of last 3 years. However, CSR in India is not applied to every corporate or company, wherein the various parameters on which CSR is applied in India is that a company or a corporate needs to have a net worth of 500 crores or more, or it has a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, or it has a net profit of rupees 5 crore or more. Now let us understand the various issues highlighted by the author on the implementation of CSR in improving higher education. Now the first issue highlighted by the author is that the CSR funding priorities in India is not tilted towards higher education, wherein the author provides an example that in the financial year of 2014-15, roughly 74% of CSR funds went to the Prime Minister Relief Fund. Now, the second issue highlighted by the author is that there is a lack of strategic thinking and innovation among corporates and companies in India with regards to CSR, wherein the various corporates and companies in India are not able to utilize the fund under corporate social responsibility in higher education. Now, hopefully, you have understood the two issues that have been highlighted by the author. Now, let us understand the various suggestions given by the author on how CSR funds can be utilized for improving higher education. Now, the first suggestion given by the author is that the Ministry of Human Resource and Development should now work with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to incentivize CSR in higher education. Is applying the recommendations of the Narayan Murthy Committee on Corporate Governance. Now, these recommendations of the Narayan Murthy Committee on Corporate Governance is not specific to CSR, but nevertheless, the author has highlighted them on how they can be used in improving higher education, wherein the first recommendation is free land for 999 years for higher education institutions. The second recommendation is giving deductions to companies and corporates for their contributions to higher education. The third and the final suggestion given by the author in improving the utilization of corporate social responsibility funds in higher education is that the CSR fund can be utilized for plugging the gap in the shortfall of funding for public Indian universities. Now, hopefully, up till here, you've understood the issues highlighted by the author with regards to the utilization of the fund under corporate social responsibility in improving higher education. Now, the first issue highlighted by the author is that the CSR funding priorities in India for corporates and companies is not tilted towards higher education, wherein the author has given the example that in the financial year of 2014-15, roughly 74% of the CSR fund went to the Prime Minister Relief Fund, wherein according to the author, this shows a lack of strategic thinking and innovation among corporates and companies in India with regards to the utilization of the Fund of Corporate Social Responsibility. Now, the author has given various suggestions on how the Fund of Corporate Social Responsibility can be utilized for improving higher education in India. Now, the first suggestion given by the author is that the Ministry of Human Resource and Development that overlooks higher education in India should work with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs that overlooks CSR, wherein both of them can come up with a roadmap to incentivize CSR funds in higher education. The second suggestion given by the author is to apply the recommendations of the Narayan Murthy Committee on Corporate Governance. And the third and the final suggestion given by the author is that the Corporate Social Responsibility Fund can also be utilized to plug the current shortfall with regards to the funding of public universities in India. And this is one of the things that can be incentivized by the working together of the Ministry of Human Resource and Development and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So now hopefully you've understood as to what is CSR and what are the issues and suggestions given by the author with regards to the utilization of corporate social responsibility funds in improving higher education in India. Now with regards to your UPSC syllabus, now your utilization of CSR in improving higher education would be placed in GS paper 2 within the subsection issues relating to development and management of the social sector education, wherein you can highlight on how CSR funds can be utilized for improving higher education in India. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 7. Now what this article talks about is the recent report of the Reserve Bank of India on state finances, wherein this article highlights the various issues with regards to shifting towards cash transfers for food subsidy. So with regards to this article, the first thing that we'll try to understand is what are the requirements to switch to cash transfers from the current public distribution system. The second thing we'll try to understand is what are the benefits of direct cash transfers. The third thing we'll try to understand is what are the issues to switching to cash transfers from the current public distribution system. Wherein the RBI report has asked the various states of India to acknowledge the various problems that the union territories have had in the implementation of cash transfer. Now, the fourth and the final aspect that we'll try to understand from this article is what are the suggestions given by the RBI report to deal with the issues of cash transfer. Now, with regards to UPSC syllabus, this article and the forthcoming explanation would be placed in GS paper 3 within the section Economic Development and within the subsection Public Distribution System. Now let us first understand as to what are the requirements to switch to cash transfer from the current public distribution system. Now the switch to cash transfers from the current public distribution system requires the fulfillment of the preconditions that have been given in the cash transfer of food subsidy rules of 2015. Wherein the first requirement is that there should be complete digitization of the beneficiary database. The second requirement is that there should be seeding of bank accounts and linking of the bank accounts with the Aadhaar card. The third requirement is that there should be adequate availability of food grains in the open market. And this requirement has been given so that the beneficiaries who have been given cash transfer have nearby markets in which they can buy food grains that they require. The fourth main requirement, as highlighted in the article, is that the state should form a state agency to receive and transfer the subsidy to the beneficiaries. Now hopefully up till here you've understood the four main requirements that have been highlighted in the report and in the article that are required to be followed to switch to cash transfer from the current public distribution system, wherein these requirements have been provided in the cash transfer of food subsidy rules of 2015, wherein the first requirement is the complete digitization of the beneficiary database. The second requirement is the seeding of the bank accounts of the beneficiaries and linking of these bank accounts with their Aadhaar card. The third requirement is that there should be adequate availability of food grains in the open market so that the beneficiaries can buy the food grains from the cash transfers in the open market. And the fourth main requirement, as highlighted in the article, is that the state should form a state agency to receive and transfer the subsidy to the beneficiaries. Now let us understand the benefits of direct cash transfer. Now the RBI report has highlighted two benefits of having direct cash transfer rather than the current public distribution system, wherein the cash transfer of food subsidies reduce the need for having large-scale physical movement of food grains. The second benefit highlighted in the RBI report is that it would allow the beneficiaries of this cash transfer to have greater autonomy. And these beneficiaries would have greater autonomy in choosing their consumption basket as to on which food they would like to spend their money. Now hopefully up till here you've also understood the two benefits of cash transfer that have been highlighted in the RBI report, wherein the first benefit is that the cash transfer of food subsidies reduce the need for large-scale physical movement of food grains, wherein let's say the food grains are required in Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, but they are being physically moved from Haryana or Punjab. But the direct cash transfer of food subsidy to the people of Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh would allow these individuals to have greater autonomy in choosing their consumption basket, wherein they could buy their required food grains from the open market. Now let us understand the various issues highlighted in the article and in the RBI report with regards to the implementation of cash transfers. Within the union territories which have implemented cash transfers, there have been issues wherein low cash has been transferred to the beneficiaries, because of which the beneficiaries have not been able to meet their required consumption levels. The second issue highlighted in the report is that there has been weak last mile delivery mechanisms, wherein let's say the cash has been transferred to the beneficiary, but the facility to withdraw that cash from banks or ATMs is located very far from the residence of that beneficiary. And apart from this, there has also been a weak grievances redressal mechanism, meaning that in various union territories in which this cash transfer scheme has been implemented, there has been a weak grievances redressal mechanism, as in the complaints that have been given by the beneficiaries are not properly undertaken or resolved by the union territory authorities. So now hopefully up till here you also understood the issues as highlighted by the RBI report with regards to the implementation of cash transfer. When the first issue highlighted in the report is that there has been low cash transferred to the beneficiaries, and because of which they have not been able to meet their consumption level or buy the required food from the open market. The second issue highlighted in the report is that there has been weak last mile delivery mechanisms, wherein the food grain that the beneficiary requires is not available in the open market, or it has become difficult for the beneficiary to withdraw the cash that has been transferred to his account, since the bank or ATMs are located very far from his residence. And the last issue highlighted in the report is that there has been a weak grievances redressal mechanism in the union territories that have implemented this scheme. Now let us understand the various suggestions as given in the RBI report in effective implementation of the cash transfer scheme. Now the first suggestion given in the report is that states should first implement public distribution system through the IT network, and it is after they have successfully implemented PDS through ICT, and after that they should implement cash transfers through the IT network. The second suggestion given in the report is that states should follow a phased implementation of cash transfer, wherein first few districts of that state should have implementation of cash transfer, and once they have become effective, then they should move on to more districts. The third suggestion given in the report is that states should have adequate budgetary allocation before launching the cash transfer model. And the fourth and the final suggestion given in the report is that states should have district-based food consumption models, wherein due to the diversity in large states in India, each district has its own food consumption patterns, and because of which food grains are available at different prices among various districts in a state. And therefore the report has suggested that states should have a district-based food consumption models to have an effective implementation of cash transfer scheme. So now hopefully up till here you've understood the four suggestions given by the RBI report for the effective implementation of cash transfer. When the first suggestion given by the report is that states should first implement the public distribution system through the IT network, and after they have successfully implemented PDS through ICT, then the state should implement cash transfers through the IT network. The second suggestion given in the report is that states should have a phased implementation of the cash transfer scheme, when states first should have few districts with a cash transfer scheme, and after they have been effectively implemented in those districts, and it is after that that the state should move on to adding other districts. The third suggestion given in the report is that the state should have adequate budgetary allocation before implementing the cash transfer scheme. And the fourth and the final suggestion given in the report is for states to have a district-based food consumption models, wherein large states in India, the food consumption patterns vary from district to district, and therefore certain food grains are at a higher price in some districts and at a lower price in other districts. And by having a district-based food consumption models, the state should be effectively able to implement the cash transfer scheme. So now hopefully you've understood the various aspects of the RBI report on state finances, in particular on how cash transfers can be an alternative to the public distribution system. Now a question for your practice is highlight the various issues in the effective implementation of cash transfer for food subsidies and suggest measures to overcome them, wherein you can use the information given in the article and in the explanation in this section to answer this question. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 14. Now what this article talks about is the jute sector. Now recently what happened is that there has been a ban against plastic bags. And this ban on plastic packaging is seen as an opportunity for the jute sector. And this article highlights the various challenges that are there for the jute sector for achieving this opportunity. Now, this article has highlighted various challenges with regards to the jute sector, where the first challenge is that there is a lack of availability of quality raw material. The second challenge highlighted in the article is that there has been a shrinkage in the acreage or the total land under the cultivation of the jute crop, and because of this, there has been low productivity and a fall in prices of this cash crop. The third challenge highlighted in the article is that there has been a failure for the jute mills to modernize, wherein currently the jute sector still relies on labor intensive cultivation. The third challenge highlighted in the article is of retting, wherein it is the process of extracting fibers such as jute fiber, and in this process, the raw jute is drenched in water to extract fibers. However, there has been a lack of availability of water, which has become an upcoming challenge in the jute sector. Now, the article has also highlighted recent efforts that have been undertaken by the Government of India to combat the challenges in the jute industry, wherein an initiative has been introduced in the jute industry, where research organizations such as the Indian Jute Industries Research Associations and others would try to develop a thin and slim jute shopping bag. And apart from this, the National Jute Board and the Jute Corporation of India have also introduced a pilot project on retting technologies. And this pilot project has been introduced under the iCare program. So now hopefully you've understood as to why this article is in the news and what are the challenges and the recent efforts undertaken with regards to the jute industry. And apart from this, there's two additional facts that you should remember with regards to the jute industry. Where the first fact is that West Bengal is the largest producer of jute. And the second fact that you should remember is that the Jute Corporation of India provides the MSP to jute cultivators. And so hopefully you've understood the various challenges and the recent efforts with regards to the jute industry. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 13. Now what has happened is that the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology in a recent order has mandated that the central government would give preferences to cybersecurity products to local firms. Now the reason the government of India has decided to do this is firstly that cybersecurity is a strategic sector and the government of India intends for the indigenization of cybersecurity to protect the government of India's information space. And the second reason is that this policy intends to support Make in India and is therefore based on the public procurement preference to Make in India order of 2017. And the third final reason is that it is based on global practices, wherein the United States, China, and Russia have already started this policy. So now hopefully up till here you understood that the government of India intends to give preference to procurement of cybersecurity products to domestic firms. And the reason the government of India has brought up this policy is because cybersecurity is a strategic sector and the government of India intends for indigenization protection of its information. The second reason is that the government of India intends to promote Make in India and this policy is therefore based on the public procurement preference to Make in India order of 2017. And the third and the final reason for the government of India to give preference in procurement of cybersecurity products to domestic firms is because it is based on the global practices, wherein the United States, China, and Russia are already following this practice. Now, there are two basic features that you should understand about this policy. Wherein, firstly, domestic firms are those firms which have their intellectual property rights, are owned by companies or startups which are incorporated in India. And the second feature is that the IP registration is not mandatory to be in India. So now hopefully up till here you've also understood that the intellectual property rights of the cybersecurity products should be owned by companies which are incorporated in India. However, the IP registration is not mandatory to be in India. Now with regards to UPSC syllabus, wherein this recent policy of the Government of India would be placed in GS paper 3 within the section security and within the subsection challenges to internal security through communication networks and the basics of cyber security. Now in addition, you have to understand that one of the main reasons for the Government of India to follow this policy is because cybersecurity is a strategic sector. Now, what has recently happened is that the United States banned the Kaspersky cybersecurity software. And the reason the United States banned the use of Kaspersky is because it had links with Russian companies. And there were allegations that Russia was spying on US government computers, which used the Kaspersky cybersecurity software. And this is one of the reasons as to why Government of India wants to use indigenous cybersecurity software. And so therefore, hopefully you understand on why using foreign cybersecurity software is a challenge to internal security and also to cybersecurity. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 5. Now what we'll do with regards to this article is understand few basic facts about the Indian black turtles from the perspective of your prelims examination. Now questions on particular animals have been asked in the prelims examination, and these questions have specifically focused upon their habitats and their relation to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. So with regards to the Indian black turtle, what we'll try to understand is first its habitat. The second thing we'll try to understand as to which schedule of the Wildlife Protection Act it falls under. And thirdly, we'll also understand as to which part of the IUCN list it falls under. Now the Indian black turtle or the Indian pond terrapin is a medium-sized freshwater turtle and is generally found around paddy fields, ponds and canals, or what is freshwater sources. Now the Indian black turtle is classified as near threatened in the IUCN list and is protected under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. So now hopefully you've understood the three basic facts with regards to the Indian black turtle from the perspective of your prelims examination. And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.